paper that we're going to be excited to share here tonight. I realize that there's some folks here that haven't joined us before or may just be learning about this study for the first time, and that's perfectly fine. We're still in the early stages here, and there's still plenty of time to influence it. So for those of you that are new, we'll talk a little bit about what this project is, introduce you to that. If you were here on Monday and Tuesday, you've heard a little bit about that before. But really the goal is to keep that part short so that we can give you all time to come and meet with our team at the different tables, sections around the wall, and really see a lot of the work. It goes better just kind of seeing it one-on-one and letting you move through to things that you might be interested in, talking about those and having smaller discussions so everybody has a chance to speak with our teammates and us hear from you. For our team, I'll introduce myself. My name is Kevin Bacon. I'm a director of urban design with a company called Tool Design. I've been with Tool for a couple of years now. Our firm is a planning and design firm that really specializes in how we leverage transportation projects to leverage the types of cities that we want to create. So really thinking about connected communities and how transportation works for all modes, all people, not just cars. Our consultant team that is working with our project sponsors is BAE. BAE is not here tonight. They had to leave early. That's Bay Area Economics. They're doing the market research for us. And then Inga Kennedy with PEQ helping us with community engagement. The project's being sponsored by the Central Midlands Council of Governments, CMCOG, as well as in partnership with the City of Columbia, Richland County. We've got a couple of people in attendance tonight. I don't know if anybody wants to say hello or introduce yourselves. There we go. Our team this week, we've had many of our folks on the ground here working with us in this space and out in the community. Addie is here. Where did you go? Right here in the back, an urban designer that is joining us from the Atlanta office. Gabe Jenkins, right over there. He came down from our Spartanburg office. Alex McKay, another designer, right there next to Addie, came down from Chicago. Hillary, a project planner from Atlanta, and then Inga, Mary, and Rachel from our team. So what is this study? We'll start with what the study area is, if you're not familiar with it. The Riverbank Study Area, really not named just because of the zoo, but because of the area located between the Broad and Saluda River, and the idea that there's a part of the study that's thinking about what is that relationship to the rivers. It also reaches over a little bit into the Earlwood neighborhood and the Elmwood Cemetery, and really the why of this study was thinking about the coming growth to the study area and wanting to get ahead of that, starting to see it radiating out from downtown Columbia, thinking about that connection back in, and then also knowing that there are some big projects going on, the Carolina Crossroads, for example, that are reshaping some of those roads, making them wider, changing the access to that area. And so then rather than wait to see kind of what happens as a result of that and whatever change happens, this is an opportunity to think about what do we want that growth and change to look like. So the end of the plan is very much like what are transportation and land use recommendations and projects that we want to see. But the idea is, before we get into all of that, is what is this as a place, and what is the place that people want to see this become? And we understand that this is a very interesting place. You have sections that are all about movement of cars and the development that has come with that, such as Broad River Road and then turning off into Graystone there in the distance. So you've got some big roads and big development there that is probably past its prime and kind of waiting for the what's next. We're in one of those places right now. This is not a plan just about Dutch Square Mall. We are not the owners of that. We are not the master developers of that. But when we're thinking about the study area more largely, it's an important site to think about the role it could play and what we want the larger study area to become. But aside from all of that, and one of the things that we've heard all week long is that this area is beautiful. There are some really beautiful aspects to this. It just happens to be layered behind some of this other stuff. It's sometimes a little bit disconnected. And how can we change that relationship? How can we emphasize some of that? Are there ways to even make that better and be a part of that change that comes? Not surprisingly, there's a lot about, like, we've got these rivers, there are some greenways that happen on them, but how do we even get to those so that we can all get down to the river? So that's been part of what we've been hearing this week as well. So our scope for the study, it's a very planning scope, existing conditions analysis. If you joined us the last two nights, we've shared a big chunk of that work in terms of looking at street networks and land uses and where are the parks and trails. We're not going to go through all of those tonight. If you're catching up, we have a lot of that on the wall that we've shared, and Hillary will be available to kind of take you through the Cliff Notes version of that, and even some of the post-it notes of things community members have helped us fill in the gaps on. The community engagement part of that, this is a big part of our community engagement. We like to work, embed ourselves in the communities where we're working and work directly with you all. So being here in a week, letting you directly influence our work is a big part of that scope. We get to plan recommendations, but this is all about forming a vision. What do we want this area to become, and what should that physical place be? And then we make decisions about transportation and land use that come from that. And at the end of this, there will be a final document or draft in a final document that will be shared publicly for everybody to see and comment on. So what is the planning charrette? That's our opportunity to be here with you all. We started Monday night with a kickoff. It was our chance to share with you all the first few months of us working, looking at the data, what we've seen on site, what we think are kind of some of the challenges and opportunities, and you to tell us we got it wrong or we got it right, and it was a little bit of everything, which then helped us kind of think about what is the work that we get into, what are some of the big ideas, the big moves for the site, and we're going to share some of those tonight. So we've done a couple of things. We were here on Monday night for that kickoff. Last night we were over at Logan Elementary School, since a big part of the study area, my map's over there, is across the river, and we wanted to make sure that we heard from those neighborhoods as well. Had a pop-up, took all of our stuff with us, and kind of talked through the introduction and some of the very, very early ideas with neighbors over there. Then we're back here tonight for our share with you all what those ideas are. And what we've learned. So we've heard a lot, and you can see all of the notes and things that we've had over there. The tricky thing is coming through and trying to see what have we heard the most, or what do we think that the most important things are. So again, this is another one where you can tell us that, yeah, we've got it or we're missing one. But what we've heard is first and foremost, it's a beautiful area. I think I said that already, but reveal it, make it more beautiful. That Riverbank Zoo is an amenity. There's a lot of pride that it's one of the biggest zoos in the country, but beyond its national stature, a lot of folks feel like this is a local thing to access. It's an amenity here for people that live in the area, and it could be more so if it were a little bit better connected and thought of in that way. One is between the rivers and the zoo and some of these other areas, like, can we just stitch all of this good stuff together so that it's easier for all of us to access it inside the Riverbanks area? Make it safer for pedestrians and bicyclists to get around. One thing that we showed on the last couple nights is, because this is a very big road area, that makes a lot of people have to drive everywhere that you need to go. Over 90% of all trips in this area are by vehicle, so if we provided the bike lanes and the sidewalks and thought about those needing to go to logical places, that could be a way that people get around a lot more, but it's got to be safe. Create new opportunities for real estate development, and that's primarily along those corridors where we're seeing a lot of vacancies and businesses that are waiting on something new to happen. And sometimes by creating those connections and thinking about how we get around the area, we can spark some of that to happen. And then the last one is get us to the river. And I've got in parentheses, we heard Greenville a lot. We also heard some other areas. And jumping off of that is what we wanted to kind of get into everybody's mind is, how is this like Greenville, or just how big is this study area? Because it's really big. It covers a lot of area. How big is it? It's 2,900 acres. It's almost 4.5 square miles. And to just relate that, if you were to move this a little bit to the southeast, you can fit almost all of downtown Columbia inside of the study area and have a little room left over. If you want to compare it to Greenville, you can fit about 4 Greenvilles downtown Greenvilles inside of the study area. Their river's actually much smaller than the Broad and the Saluda rivers. Another one, Chattanooga, and we're looking at cities that have been changing their relationships to the rivers over the years, ways to do it. All of these are downtowns changing it. This really isn't a downtown. And I don't think what we want to do is try to remake this just as a downtown. I think there's pieces that probably can get denser and change, but because it's suburban, it's a little bit different. It has its own, unique attributes. We have to make sure that the way that we respond to the river is in a way that resonates with this area. We're not forcing a downtown solution on this area. So Chattanooga, you could fit about 3 or 4 downtown Chattanoogas. Another one, and this was just to see, really hit home how big this was. Another city that was trying to reinvent its relationship with rivers because they were all cut off by freeways was, well, Manhattan in New York City. It was cut off by the Hudson and the East Rivers. You could basically fit all of lower Manhattan and a little bit of Brooklyn inside the study area. That's how big of an area that we're trying to figure out how it works and how we want it to work. So from all of those discussions and starting to look at these cities and understand the size, we kind of figured there's kind of 5 big moves that from those big common themes that we heard of things that we need to do to make this all work. One is put people first. We heard a lot of things about make it human scale. There were a lot of questions like, what's the heart of the community in terms of a physical place? Like, what's the middle of it all? Where do people go? We got a lot of we wish we could go there, like to the rivers, or did we have parks? But nobody really pointed to this is the middle of the riverbank study area. So, are there areas that are out there that we don't know about yet, or is there a way to find and create some of those that help make this more about a place for people and not just passing through? Another one is connecting to the rivers. I think that one probably explains itself, but not just getting over to the greenways that exist on either side, but the actual edges of the rivers that you have here. For the people that live here now, we want to make sure that what we're doing, honors and is a benefit to the folks that live here today. Leverage access. We have limited access points across the river right now, so we better make them as good as we can make them, not just for cars, but again for other modes of transportation. And then how do we do that is by breaking down some of the barriers. We have a site that's bordered by barriers. You have I-20 on the north side that kind of cuts things off. As you come around the other side, you have 26 and 126, and as great as the rivers are as an opportunity, they are also a barrier. You have to cross them and connect over them. We have railroads along the southwest side, along the Saluda River, and then again up the Broad River on the other side. So there's a lot of things that we've got to figure out how to get over, under, through, in order to make all of this work. But it's really important to stitching this all together internally and back to downtown, to places to the north. And then the last one, and it kind of comes back to the first of putting people first, is where are those opportunities for exchange? Where are those kind of, again, those pieces in the middle where there could be some of those real estate development opportunities, create some new centers within this. We don't think it's a big, broad brushstroke. We think there's kind of lots of little moves that could be made to create some of that and make it work. And then this is where we'll get ready to talk tonight. We think that moves into 4 different ways of possibly organizing the study area, which is what we've played out. Some of these on the table and all of these address the 5 big moves in some way. It's just some get emphasized more than others in order to make them work. And we're not saying one is the right answer right now. These are just ways that we're trying to see, does this work? Does this make sense? And we're eager to kind of show the early thinking on that tonight to see if we think we might have something here. The first one is going all in on the edges. And if you were here on Monday and Wednesday night, we talked a lot about the Broad River Road Master Plan and how we were really focusing on the corridors as an edge and how do we stitch those things together. In addition to that, thinking about the rivers as an edge. So we're really looking at staying out of the middle parts of the study area where we have a lot of residential and really focusing on the edges. The second one is the Graystone Boulevard spine. Part of our history lesson on Monday and Tuesday was that Graystone exists because it was originally intended to be an extension of 12th Street across the Saluda River and be this big freeway that cut through the site that got stopped. And we've got this big wide road. Well, rather than just a big wide road that was just for vehicles, could this be repurposed as a new way of connecting through the site with trails and it could be bicycle lanes, sidewalks, a way that kind of sneaks through some of the beautiful parts of the area that doesn't require you to get in a car to move around. Another one that we've been calling the urban acupuncture is the very kind of light strategic move. There's a lot of kind of beautiful areas embedded in these neighborhoods or along Broad River Road. There are retention ponds that are surrounded by trees that are kind of these forgotten assets. There are extra lots around the schools. There are places that are huge parking lots that aren't used fully. And so we're wondering, could we be really strategic and pick some of those, turn those into beautiful public spaces, and connect those by trails or sidewalks or bike lanes so that you've created all of these areas for people and a whole way of moving around the study area as a result. And then the last one is go all in on the river. And it's not that Broad River Road or Graystone aren't important, but they're not going to be the center of our attention. What we really want to do is think about, if you're inside the study area, how do we maximize the way that we allow people to get to the river, maybe by car, but mostly by foot, by bike, give people options on how to get there. And it's not easy. There's a lot of up and down that we have to do. But what we've learned this week are there are a lot of nooks and crannies and some connections that already exist, if you know where to hunt for them, that could be leveraged to do that. And I would say that in the end, in my experience, and if you've been through these processes before, it's very rare that the answer is one or the other. There's usually some aspect of good ideas in all of these that get us to the right answer, but it helps to think about these in kind of these big, bold scenarios as a starting point and understanding them to come back to what ultimately is the best answer or the best plan for the area. I'm almost done talking. So what we've been working on, we've got some stations tonight. I know sometimes these meetings we take lots of questions and do that town hall style. Because we're at the mall, we have not as much time as we normally would like to have. So there's going to be plenty of time for questions, but we'll do it in like small groups at the tables, talking to us, so that there's plenty of time to get to the work that we've seen. The way that we've set this up is, I mentioned Hillary's going to help us with existing conditions. She's been working with me since November to put all of this together, so is just as familiar with any of this as I am, and has been there for all of the comments, all of the interviews, and can talk to that. Table 2, the big moves with Addie, she'll be over by the map, and if you're interested in any of the big moves, the 4 main scenarios, just in big picture terms, she'll talk to you about all of those. Places for exchange, as we've been getting into, like where could some of those strategic parks, or what are those big sites? We've thought about how you identify those, and even started playing with how might you break those up, or think about how those would serve the connections and redevelopment opportunities. Very early ideas, but there's some that I'm happy to talk through on my table. I'll be right there. I'm right next to the snacks, so very strategically located. Alex, all the way in the corner. If you're interested in the streets, we've been thinking about, like, we've got these big wide roads and we've got small roads. How do we start to think about those for moving people? And there's a lot of different ways that we could do that. So he's got the big concept about how do we go to the edges in terms of the roads and the rivers, and how do we make the streets work for that. Very similarly, if you go to Gabe, who's there in the blue sweater, he's going to talk about the trails. If we use trails as the major way of connecting the site and start looking for those opportunities for connection, he's got a couple different ideas at his table to talk through. So those are our 5 big tables. I'd invite everybody to, you don't have to go in any order. You can go to whatever you want to. You can hit 2, 3, 4, whatever. But we're here until 7 o'clock-ish and happy to talk. Yes, ma'am.
I would have asked this on a group, but I feel like this is important for the overarching idea of what we're doing. I just wanted to know what was the vision for what activities would be done at the river, because that's also going to influence how we plan.
Yeah.
And I don't know right now what we are currently allowed to do at that particular river. Do you know?
I would say at this point in the study, we want to hear what people want to do at the river. I mean, there are certain things that are challenging or probably prohibited, like on the Broad River side, because you have the dam and how far you can go up that. But I think at this point, that's a really good question. Is that we've talked a lot about access, we've heard about fishing, we've heard about rafts and canoes, but we'd love to hear some of those ideas tonight.
Well, I didn't know if there was any laws in the area that was prohibiting the way you said it.
Yeah.
If they're not, then we can really take that one.
Yeah. I would start with the big picture. Let's start with what we want, and then sometimes we figure out how to make it work around those regulations. This is one of those big plans that spans like this. It doesn't happen in 5 years or in 10 years, but you've got to start with kind of that bold thinking where people go, are you delirious? And then you have to be a little bit delirious, because if you're not, then you're just kind of trying to push the needle a little bit. So, yeah. Welcome back.
So after tonight, when will the final plan be put together for all of us?
That's a good question. We haven't really established that schedule yet, because we wanted to kind of see how this week went and how far that we got. So we'll get back in the next couple of weeks or so. If you've got the flyers, there's a website on there where we're trying to keep the general project information, and we'll get that updated. And we also have your emails. So
Yes, we've got the email list now too, so.
And,
Yep, I'm standing right
I'm
there.
sorry,
Okay,
Kevin, we're gonna, this one and that one, and then we're gonna break.
and then we'll break out. Okay, yes, sir.
This is part of the Midlands Council of Governments, is that correct?
Yes, sir, they're our project sponsor.
Are you coordinating any of this with the Carolina Greenway, which is the walkway from basically Casey all the way to Lake Murray, that's going along 26?
Is it the new one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've looked a little bit about the connections to the north, but we haven't gotten really into,
But I mean, the Greenway is connected, it goes right by Greystone Boulevard
yeah.
and right up, and that's part of what you're
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
Are
yeah.
y'all coordinating with that, or you have incorporated any of that into your plan?
Yeah, we're thinking about like the greenways as they exist. We've been talking about what they've got planned in terms of, we know those are ongoing projects. So we're thinking about like, you know, is there a way to inform some of what they're doing, or is there a way to build on to some of that?
Well, because they're reality, I mean, they're actually gonna open that
Oh,
up
yeah.
in the next few months.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to bike from Casey all the way to Irmo up to the dam,
Yeah,
you know, by trail.
yeah,
And if you're talking about doing trails, and I'll talk to Gabe when I get over there, but the connection between what you're doing and the connection with what they've already got accomplished seems to be something that's should be coincided or work together with.
Yeah,
some-
Yeah.
and that was, our discussion with Irmo yesterday.
yes, it was.
About the connection.
And I think real quick about the trails, and I don't want to eat up too much of this time, is we've got these really great trails that are starting to connect city to city or region to region, and those are fantastic starts, and that's usually how you have to get things going. Our interest is really like, those are going, those are moving, but how do you connect this area into those? Yeah. I'll take the question back there.
Well, maybe I'm late and, I didn't understand what was going on tonight, but I thought at the same time, was this about, developing from the undeveloped land, state, outside, outside of the city, such as the CIU and the campground, development out in Monticello Road.
No,
Ain't
this
going
is
that far.
much more closer to,
Ain't going out
yeah, the area between I-20 and 26 and the rivers and just across over towards downtown.
They ain't going out there.
And if you want to come join us over here on this area, we can pinpoint you directly where we're at. So, yeah, please come talk to us.